Am I a bastard?
You are a Targaryen. That's all that matters.
Are Rhaenyra's children truly fathered by Harwin Strong? An investigation. Children. Can't live with them, can't create important political and strategic alliances without them. The children of Westeros have to suffer through a variety of outdated social customs and practices across the spectrum of class and stature, but none experience the kind of discrimination faced by cripples, bastards, and broken things. A deformed child is treated like a monster. Just ask the person who said that quote, and mental illness was a sign of madness from the gods rather than a commonplace occurrence for Westerosi society. But bastards, they are an entirely different matter. Born outside of wedlock, with a black reputation since birth, bastards have to spend their entire lives to prove that they aren't as treacherous as the intentions that created them. But what if you are a bastard and also an heir to the Iron Throne? Cersei Lannister's children found out that answer the hard way, and it looks like so might Rhaenyra Targaryens. But are Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey truly Harwin Strong's bastards? Let's investigate this, taking into consideration what we know from Fire and Blood. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Be good to your mother, lads. I'll visit when I can.
Royal Bastards. What we know from A Song of Ice and Fire. When we found out that Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen were bastards while watching the first season of Game of Thrones, our first thought went instantly to the book that ended up making the revelation, The Lineages and Histories of the Great Houses of the Seven Kingdoms. A ponderous tome, as Grand Maester Pycelle put it. But nonetheless, it gave Ned Stark enough information to figure out that Cersei's children were Jaime's bastards. In essence, Ned played a game of medieval genetics, charting instances where Baratheons had married Lannisters and checking for any manifestations of Lannister features in any of the couplings. When he realizes that the answer is no, all children strongly resemble their Baratheon parents, that is when his suspicions are confirmed, and he deduces what Cersei has done. It's the whole reason why Eddard Stark ends up losing his head despite being a POV character. So this is serious stuff, people, because bastardy, while a frowned upon institution, was an institution nonetheless, and the pass of children outside of wedlock was nothing short of high treason. This is exactly what Ned told Cersei before she had him captured and Joffrey lopped his head off of his shoulders. Now, let's compare these three purebred Lannisters to some other great bastards we know of, shall we? Aegon the Unworthy had many bastards, but 4 of them stood head and shoulders above all: Brynden Rivers, Shiera Seastar, Aegor Rivers, and Daemon Blackfyre. Out of these 4 great bastards, only 2 of them were born from women with no Valyrian blood in their veins. Daemon was a product of incest, and Shiera's mother was the Scene, which means she had Valyrian blood in her veins. And yet, Aegor Rivers was the only one to manifest a non-Valyrian feature, named his black hair. His eyes were purple like every other Valyrian's, so we know that while one gene pool can be stronger than another in most cases, it can also falter in the face of others. That's just how genetics works. But is that the case for Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey Valerion?
Princess, Sir Laenor, it is a privilege to be amongst the first to congratulate you.
Thank you, Lord Caswell.
Can Rhaenyra's children be Sir Laenor Valerions after all? Exploring the possibilities. Though this has been omitted in the TV show, if it had been included, it could have worked out in Rhaenyra's favor, because Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was, hasn't been portrayed quite accurately in House of the Dragon. Don't get us wrong, we love Eve Best's hair attire, and the fact that she can pull it off, but it is supposed to be decidedly more black, because while her father was a model Valyrian prince, her mother had the features of a Baratheon with a peculiar eye coloring. The Lady Jocelyn Baratheon had long, dark black hair and eyes, which is unusual considering Baratheons usually have bright blue eyes, accompanying their dark manes. Rhaenys inherited her mother's hair color and her father's eye color, making her a rare black-haired Targaryen, and when she grew older, the black did not go away. It was simply streaked with silver. Her son Laenor was born with the features of a model Valyrian: Roman nose, hair like spun silver, and purple eyes. Laenor's coloring was thanks to both his parents' Valyrian genes dominating his genetic structure, which cannot be discounted in a land where the same characteristics keep recurring over and over again, and he ended up getting married to Rhaenyra Targaryen, who herself has a diverse ancestral background. Though her mother Aema and her father Viserys had distinctly Valyrian features, Aema's mother Daela was married to Lord Roderick Arryn. The Arryns of the Vale are the only great house whose features are not prominently discussed during the events of A Song of Ice and Fire. Perhaps this is deliberate on George R.R. Martin's part, as maybe he doesn't want us to know how Arryns look for some nefarious political and marital reason, but perhaps we do know how they look. We just haven't thought that far ahead yet. We get proper descriptions for a sum total of 2 people from the Vale of Arryn, and they both happen to be in the line of succession for the Eyrie. The first is Lord Robert Arryn, or Sweet Robin, as he is known in his household. Robin is the son of Jon Arryn, who served as Hand of the King to Robert Baratheon, and Lysa Tully, the sister of Catelyn Tully of Riverrun. Robin has brown hair and watery blue eyes, but that is not exactly an indicator of how an Arryn looks like, because it is possible that his brown hair is the result of Lysa's auburn hair being knocked down a shade, thanks to Jon Arryn's natural hair. So let's look at an example of what a model Arryn should look like by getting acquainted with a man who is described as the spitting image of Lord Jon in A Feast for Crows. Harold Harding is not Jon Arryn's son. He is connected to House Arryn through Jon's father Jasper, whose daughter Alice Arryn married Sir Ellis Waynwood, and their youngest daughter bore a son to the nameless landed knight from House Harding. That man was Harold's father. After Jon Arryn lost all his male heirs by his previous marriages, he made Harold his own son Robert's heir, so that the Arryn name would not die out with him. If Harold were to ever claim the Eyrie, he was to become Lord Harold Arryn, Lord of the Eyrie and Warden of the East, and this prospective Great Lord of Westeros also happens to look like a model Arryn. He is said to have sandy blonde hair, deep blue eyes, and a Roman nose, trait characteristic to Valemen, apparently. If we are to take Harold's description as the baseline for the men of House Arryn, then it is possible that Roderick Arryn, too, had blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, if we were to keep all this information in our minds and try to think of the parentage of Rhaenyra's children, you might just start accepting the argument that Laenor was their father all along. After all, we know from the real world how dominant and recessive genes work. It's possible that through a particularly convoluted routine of genetic gymnastics across 3 generations, Jace, Luke, and Joff ended up inheriting the short end of the stick on all fronts, and received a common look for it. Their brown hair can be explained as a defect of the Baratheon black, their deep eyes a gift from their grandmother Jocelyn, whose eye color was never quite disclosed in the first place. Jon Snow is a bastard who is a spitting image of a Stark. He has dark brown hair, deep gray eyes, and long solemn face. But as we know now, he is half Stark, half Targaryen, with his biological father having been a product of pure incest between Aerys and Rhaella. So it is possible that Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey Valerion were in fact the biological sons of Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen and Prince Consort Laenor Valerion. Certainly. But is that the case in reality? Absolutely not.
Another boy, I heard.
Hair, eyes, and noses. Why Jace, Luke, and Joff are most certainly Harwin Strong's bastards. Forget the fact that Episode 6 basically confirmed Harwin Strong as the father of Rhaenyra's kids with a few well-placed looks and provocations. Let's go back to Fire and Blood, where things are more ambiguous, and try to break things down from there. In the books, the 3 royal princes are all described as having had the same look, brown hair, and eyes with a pug nose, even if we tried to disregard the fact that Sir Harwin is also described using those exact descriptors. We can't, as that holds the key to disproving claims that put them forward as true-born sons. First, the hair and the eyes. No combination of genetic gymnastic routines can arrive at that hair color unless it held a trace of auburn in it first, and Laenor is born with pure Valyrian features. The argument that dominant or recessive genes played a role is null and void for its concept. Let's move on to the eyes now. Yes, it is true that Lady Jocelyn's eyes were described as having been dark, but dark is not brown, and it isn't even black. It can be just a very deep purple, as we know from the Dunk and Egg novellas. King Aegon V, called the Unlikely, spent his childhood roaming the 7 kingdoms with the hedge knight Duncan the Tall. To disguise himself, he would often shave his head to keep his trademark silver-gold Valyrian hair from growing in. but there was nothing he could do about his eyes. They were a deep purple that, while difficult to make out at first, were all but apparent if you were not sitting in a dimly lit space. It's possible that Lady Jocelyn's eyes were also a similar shade of purple, one so deep that they gave the appearance of having been black. Jace, Luke, and Joff's eyes are described as being brown, which makes it unlikely that they inherited their coloring from their paternal grandmother. The last things that make it very clear they are Harwin's sons are their noses, whose descriptions are identical to his. All three boys are called pug-nosed, and there is only one other character for whom that distinction is reserved.
Is Harwin Strong my father?
Marvelous verdict. So yes, while it is possible for the three princes to not have been bastards born outside of wedlock, but of some very genetically unlucky folks, that is not the case here. Sir Harwin Strong was definitely the father of Rhaenyra's children, and a traitor to the crown and his own father, who was serving as hand of the king while he was off playing daddy to the princess's children. In the world of George R.R. Martin, genetics are just a smidge stronger than our regular world, traits that would usually only manifest through inbreeding across several families and races of mankind. It's just unfortunate for Rhaenyra that not one of her kids inherited any Valyrian features. If they only had purple eyes, she could have used the logic we used in this video to silence her critics once and for all. Alas, it is not to be. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
What are children but a weakness?